Hey guys, my name is Jack Sather. I'm an aspiring game developer and a YouTuber, as you are probably aware of as you're watching this video on YouTube. About 2 years ago, I made a video called I Made a Game in Unreal Engine in 14 Days, parentheses, no experience. I think that's the title. It might be wrong. Sorry, it's really long. That video surprisingly did well. I didn't think it would have, and I actually said a few things in that video that I feel like I can give an update on here now 2 years later in 2026. Starting with the fact that at 28 years old, I wanted to have a game studio made by the time that I was 30 years old. And that has become a reality. Me and Nick Glenn, my game development partner, have made our official game studio together, and we're naming it, drumroll please, Playable Workshop. Which, yes, it is the same name as our educational channel where we teach people how to make video games. I didn't want to make another LLC. Me and Nick made a deal that 2026 was the year that we were going to start making our own game. And I'm very happy to say that we have started making it. And we're going to take you on that adventure of making our game today. And the game is called All for Naught. Just in case the font wasn't readable back there, yes, you can wishlist All for Naught, our game, on Steam right now. Our page just got approved. We're super excited. All my game dev friends told me to make sure to put this at the front of the video, so that's why I'm green screening myself in here right now. We'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, on with the rest of the video. So January 1st came and we got started working on our game. Basically, the idea was we were going to make a third-person hack and slash roguelike dungeon crawler cooperative adventure game that was also going to have the combat of Super Smash Bros. Melee. Some people might have said that that was a little too much to ask for your first game, and they would be correct. We got 6 days into making the game and bailed on the project. Making a third-person multiplayer game is a bit of a stretch. I wish it was easy to make multiplayer games where in the game engine you could just click a multiplayer button and it just works. That is very much not the case. It adds a lot of work and complexity to making the game. I'm sure a lot of the indie game devs out there could relate. This business involves a lot of sacrifice and a lot of compromise, especially when you work on a team. I've gotten very comfortable with the phrase, okay, fine. And the other thing was taking the game from 3D to 2D. Even though I just spent all last year learning how to make 3D games and art for it, not mad about it. I'm mad about it. And on the reels, we don't have unlimited financial runway at all. So we needed to make this game relatively quickly, but also still give you a really quality game. So let's talk about that new game idea, at least the origins, because it's grown a lot since then. An idea that I had had for a game for kind of a long time was a twist on the Vampire Survivor-like genre. I know, there's a million Vampire Survivors out there, everybody's making them, but I do think that there's still room for a twist on the genre. I always thought it was a little strange that in a Vampire Survivors or a Survivor-like game, you usually play as one character that gets like 4 auto attacks. I thought a pretty cool spin on that could be to play as 4 characters that all have 1 auto attack, kind of taking the shape of a World of Warcraft party going through a dungeon. On top of being 4 characters that all have their individual auto attacks, I think it also make the combat more dynamic if each character had their own ability that you activate with a face button. So some characters have a stun ability, some characters have a heal ability, some dash your whole group forward and maybe cause bleed damage where they left behind. We knew we were going to build the game in Godot, but we also knew that we might have to make variations to the engine to get things to work performantly. If you don't know, in a Survivor-like game, you can have the potential to fight hundreds and even thousands of enemies on screen at a time. So without even making any art yet, Nick put together a really primitive version of a Vampire Survivor where a bunch of entities or things on screen could appear and actually move around. He told me to tell you, in order to get this working, he used standard Godot and C# with an ECS pattern to make it work performantly. He says this kind of fights how Godot works with their node system, so we ended up forking Godot and making our own engine branch version of it that we're calling Dungeon. You get it? Like an engine, but dungeon. Even though most of our game takes place outside now, but not important. Nick is a performance addict, by the way. I'm sure you can get a basic Vampire Survivor working in Godot just fine, but Nick loves turning seconds into nanoseconds when it comes to this stuff. Speaking of lots of enemies, a big sell of the game I wanted was also a big roster of characters that you can collect and use as weapons. I want modularity in the game where you can create a bunch of different group dynamics, whether it's a really tanky group, whether it's a heavy hitting glass cannon build, maybe a build that focuses on movement and attack speed, or a mixture of all of those put together. Now, this is immediately where I can clock the scope creeping in. Scope Creepers podcast on Air Mrs. channel. Check it out. I was on there.
I want to talk about the goal of why you're doing game development, because that's something I think...
Oh, money.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Me and Nick started brainstorming a list of a bunch of different characters, and pretty quickly we got over 60, and that is a situation where that number starts to come down and down as we get further into building the game, where we have to start saying, okay, fine, it can't be 60, maybe 40, maybe 30, hopefully 20. We'll see what we end up with. We're shooting for a release date in October. Yes, that early. I can't wait. We're gonna try to get into Next Fest and do all the things right, but we'll see. I'm now shooting for 20 characters in the game before launch. Regardless, since this was gonna be a 2D game, I was gonna be in charge of most of the artwork, and in the last 6 months, I have drawn more than my entire life combined, I think now. I have spent almost any empty moment not working on the game, working on the artwork for the game, drawing on my iPad at night, in bed, watching TV shows, whenever I can. When I started conceptualizing the art style, I was actually watching a show called Primal, which the season 3 just came out, just binged watched it all. And I really loved their like heavy ink black lines. And when it comes to other games, I was thinking of things like Castle Crashers and Zombieville USA, if you remember that iPhone game forever ago. This is really... Wind's doing me dirty right now. At one point, we were almost going to make a 2.5D type game where we had 2D artwork, but a lot of 3D assets in the game you could go around, which is a cool idea, but it actually makes the math of the game get really weird. And again, with trying to make the game fairly quickly, we were avoiding confusion. So we ended up deciding to do full 2D. But here's an interesting thing. We didn't want to hand draw our animations and our effects for our characters. So Nick actually made an awesome technology last year in Blender that was used to basically solve 3D animation. If you've ever animated in Blender, it is a technical mess. There's hidden menus all over the place. It's very annoying and rough and feels outdated in a lot of ways. Nick made the bones of this thing in like 2 days, and then we've been working about a full year on it now, perfecting what it does. And it now even works with 2D sprites. Basically, it allows setting base poses of a character, then animating in layers additively. So you basically can start an animation with a base pose of like some guy running, then you move the chest first up and down, and then you make a layer for the legs, and then they move back and forth. Get a little head bob going in there, and boom, next thing you know, you got a full running animation ready to go. We've also decided to release this plugin. It is the first thing we're asking money for, but I think it's like $5 or $10 on our Patreon on Playable Workshop. Every day, me and Nick spent ideating this game. So much has been changed and taken out. Even though it's a relatively simple idea like Vampire Survivors, there's just decisions that you need to start making every second, it feels like. If there's 4 characters, can they die? Which one has the health bar? What are their stats? What points of interest are in the game? What are you trying to do in the game? Is there going to be a teleporter event like Risk of Rain 2 and Megabog? Is there going to be projectiles? Does that turn the game into a bullet hell? Is a basic chase mechanic going to be enough to keep the game interesting? How does scaling work? Is it additive? Is it multiplicative? Like, everything just becomes really overwhelming if you try to answer all those things in a row. Me and Nick kind of decided that I was going to end up doing most of the artwork in the game and he was going to do most of the code, which at the time being, I thought that was going to be a good idea to make sure we were like a well-oiled machine, we don't get in each other's way, all that kind of stuff. But actually, for a partnership, at least our partnership, this kind of ended up being a little bit of a detriment. Over the starting few months of the project, me and Nick started like kind of isolating ourselves into our own caves, working on our stuff and rarely checking in, maybe just a couple times a week, which based on last year, when we weren't even working on the game, we were talking every day. We figured both each other were just keeping our nose to the grindstone and getting a ton of work done. But what ended up happening, and I barely even have any footage of the first few months because I was working on artwork and kind of getting frustrated that I couldn't put it in the game myself without touching Nick's code, which I didn't, make it myself, so I didn't know exactly how to read it and how to implement things correctly. So I'd kind of have to wait to pass things to Nick. And on Nick's side of things, I wasn't doing a good job at realistically explaining what I want in the game and how it should work, especially on the nitty-gritty elements of the game that really craft the game loop itself. See, I'm much more familiar with Survivor likes. I buy almost every single one of them. I just like the genre a lot. I like all the twists on it. I like all the unlockables. Nick likes the Atari. He would laugh at that. And so what was kind of backwards in our dynamic was the fact that I kind of had the blueprint for what Survivor likes need to be, but Nick was the engineer to get the whole thing working. Things just were not on the same page for a couple months there. And on top of that, I wasn't in the greatest headspace. You guys might know one of my last videos was talking about my frustrations with being a gaming YouTuber, just feeling not excited about the material that I was working on, and just my whole creator mindset was at an all-time low. The amount of thumbnails and titles that are like the exact same thing over and over and over again is killing my creativity when it's just like, this thing was terrifying or whatever in this game that's like, cyberpunk. Nothing in cyberpunk is terrifying. Come on, dude. That was until I went to GDC San Francisco, where I got to meet some of the most incredible people. I got to meet Juniper Dev. I can't believe how much she's doing. Good luck on your game jam. I got to meet Andy from Aramis. He created a game about feeding a black hole and is like launching 3 games at a time right now, the absolute beast. I got to meet Blargus, the guy who created Blood Thief. Most importantly, I got to meet Nick in person after 2 years now, which I can't believe that amount of time has passed. Annie Austin, my boy, we got to meet. A bunch of us grabbed dinner. It was just an absolute blast. I can't wait to go again. Oh, I also met Carl from Mr. Beast randomly in my hotel. So anyway, me and Nick went back to the opposite sides of the country where our homes are and realized, okay, I think we got to soft restart this project. Basically, we can keep all the art and the assets, but this time, let's work it the way we did with Playable Workshop, where Jack actually codes the game with Nick over the shoulder. That way I know how to implement my artwork that I create and put it into the game. And it absolutely just turned our engines on. And in the last few months, we have gotten so much progress done. And for that part of the journey, I actually was recording that whole time. So I figured we'd go back to where the work gets done. This is actually what it looks like every night, pretty much. Well, there's not a candle lit, and there's a bunch more empty beer cans and coffees that I left out. But seriously, I took a page out of DevDuck's book and made sure my game dev station was as cozy and ambient as possible. I have to get into like 90 days of game development here, so I don't think we're going to cover every single day. But in general, things started off quick. We got our character in, basic movement going. We got a spooky Godot logo to chase us in game and actually deal damage to us. We also got a health bar in, and that was all done within that first day. I was also reminded how fun it is to work in collaboration with Nick, especially in code. On day 2, we knew we needed to bolster our defenses and start attacking this Godot logo back, so we threw in our first auto attack. One thing we knew we were going to have to do for performance is pooling our attacks, and you can do this with more than just attacks, but basically pooling gives an entity that you're going to spawn a lot, like a projectile. It kind of gives it a max count that it can reach, and once it hits that limit, it'll start recycling itself, going through the list and respawning the thing that was at the beginning. And don't worry, you set the amount of entities that are invited to the pool party. It just keeps things from spawning into the thousands and never being deleted and going off into the ether forever. I'll try to remember to talk about the things that added to our game's juice, but before I say any of them, there's an amazing Vlambeer talk. It's the guys that made Nuclear Throne, one of my favorite roguelikes. They have a talk on YouTube that covers so many things that your game is probably missing if it doesn't feel satisfying to kill something. One of the first things we added that did feel good is just a little bit of knockback on each projectile. We continue to get the basics in, the experience bar, basic user interface, being able to level up, some stats to start the game. I even started messing around with making some sound effects in Audacity. I don't know what I'm doing at all in this department.
Look at that. You hear that sound? It's not terrible.
I actually don't hear the sound. I have you muted.
While making the game, we were also constantly playing the games that we used for reference. So the original Vampire Survivors, Megabonk, Brotato. It really helps clear the fog on what your game is missing. But where you want to innovate, you do have to start getting a little clever. And one of our more unique parts of our game is the fact that you are playing as like 4 characters. So how does movement work? And movement is really, really important to me. I am a massive fan of a game that just feels satisfying to move around. I think the peak of this is Breath of the Wild, but we're not Nintendo, and we aren't a 3D game, and we're 2D, so we're a little more limited in that whole front. But I did kind of realize pretty early on that we were going to have to switch things up a little bit in order to get it to feel satisfying. Moving all together at the same time is just too static and rigid, and I started thinking of other games like Pikmin, where it's kind of like more flowy and watery the way the characters move around, but they have a leader. So out of our 4 characters, one was established as the leader, and then the other 3 characters would kind of follow behind him organically with a little bit of lag. So I'm not gonna lie, this movement system kind of became a big conundrum when it comes to our game making progress. There were some days where I was able to quelch it and continue making the game with Nick, but like even at night, I would just try to take cracks at fixing it again. I would draw out like diagrams in Procreate and show them to Nick and try to see if he could code it into the game. There were days where it felt like it was right, and then I'd wake up the next morning and be like, no, this is wrong. I was, what's the word? Insufferable. I'm speaking for Nick here.
I did start the stay off with saying, are you ready to get annoyed with me?
No,
so
it's
far,
not you. It's more
I am correct.
But in a not sarcastic way, I'm actually glad that we kept the conversation going, because this ended up making us go back to Milanote, which is the project software that we use, and analyzing, okay, maybe it's not the movement system. Maybe it's the game design that's not working with the movement system. And while we were digging around, we kind of came to the conclusion, okay, we have 4 characters that can be in the game. What if there's like an anchor in the center of these 4 characters? And what if that anchor is another character?
There is one who could unite them.
What if that one character ruled them all? The one king?
is chosen exile.
This is where we threw in the idea of having a king, which honestly, I was resistant to at first.
What if there were 5 guys and the party leader's at the center?
I would like to point out that this was my original idea on day 1 of you coming up with this.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did say that.
No. Who would be the 5th guy if we fucking did this? And what's the name of the game now?
I mean, protect the king. You're no longer having a party leader. You are the king, the guy in the middle.
Are you saying like you play as literally a king character?
Yeah.
No.
It's just the king in the middle.
No, I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't want to write it off immediately. My knee jerk is no. Hold on. I think this king idea might have legs the more I'm thinking about it.
And at this point, me and Nick had already come up with the game name All 4 Naught. And it was funny. I was like, no, it can't be. It's going to be All 5 Naught. That sounds stupid. But our friend Pluto was on that call, who made a few quick matches. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
It's okay. If the guy in the middle is named Naught, then all
There
4
you go.
Naught, it still works.
Genius! So they're fighting, all 4 of them, for Naught. Get it? Pluto, thank you. You're a genius. Go play his game. It's like Super Smash Bros. With stick figures. It's funny to see that I was kind of begrudgingly accepting the idea of the king because it ended up having a bunch of surprising answers to questions that we had. Who takes the damage? The king. Who gets the upgrades? The king. Who gets the items? You get it? The king. Just to put a kibosh on the end of the movement system drama, it's hard to find exactly where I stopped working on it, but at one point I finally got everything to move around nice and smooth. A big problem I kind of kept running into was people moving too inhumanly fast and stuff. I finally got everybody to be able to switch around the king, so I started working on the effects in the game, especially because the effects were really going to be involved when making the abilities for the characters. The particle effect system in Godot is very layered, and there's a lot of like weird settings, and it feels almost like duplicate settings and some things that do nothing. But once you play with every slider and figure things out, it can become pretty addictive. Just watching all these flames, particles, sparks, just going all over the place with the tweak of a slider, it's really satisfying. So I kind of theorized and made all these abilities and made their visuals for them. Also, Everything is Crab came out at the same time, so it's just funny to watch these recordings where it's just like making lightning, playing as Everything is Crab, making a fireball, playing Everything is Crab, making a bubble shield, Crab, maybe playing a game of Deadlock, Crab, lightning, Crab, fire, Deadlock, Crab, /, Crab, Deadlock, Crab. With all these visuals getting put into the game, I think the thing that was long overdue was getting the king into the game. So me and Nick got back into Blender, set up the king, got him animating, and then boom, put him into the game for the very first time.
Yes. There we go.
And now we were at the part to do the really, probably the hardest part of the game so far, which is balancing it. Let's make these stats actually work, actually level up our character, increasing our abilities. We want to make sure the game doesn't get thrown too out of whack just by upgrading a single stat. And this is where game development really turns into, unfortunately, a lot of sheets, a lot of Google Sheets. I've written out every single detail of every auto attack and every ability I can think of that's in the game so far. How much range does this ability have? What size does it get to? Does it have any status effects? What's its physical power? What's its magic power? How does it scale? There's just so much that goes into like firing an arrow and what it does to an enemy. I'm sure there's literally a million other things I could cover in this video. I mean, like even just talking about leveling up, I'm like, oh, we didn't go over level up user interface. But there's just so much that goes into this game, and I'm going to continue working on this game with Nick. I can't believe I'm saying it. Wishlist All for Naught on Steam. The link is in the description. I would very, very, very much appreciate it. And also check out our Playable Workshop animation tool on a Playable Workshop Patreon. Like I said, we're shooting for October to do the Steam Next Fest, and then as quick as we can, release the game after that. One thing that I gotta mention in this video is that I am just so thankful for the support group of other indie game developers I've met along the way. Nick and I have this Discord community that we've made that unfortunately is, I think, private, and it's just like a bunch of indie game developers and YouTubers, and we meet regularly once a week, and I've met so many amazing people and extraordinary talents. I can't understate how helpful these guys have been. If you've ever like made something artistic and then somebody comes in halfway into it being made and they don't understand what you're doing and how much work you've put into it, it can be really disheartening. And I could show these guys a week of work and they're like, oh my gosh, dude, you just killed it or whatever. And they understand how much hours it takes to make things, especially in game development. And it's just been an absolute blessing. And I gotta shout out some of the games that they've made.
Fair warning, there's kind of a lot of people to name. I'm gonna try to do this as fast as possible. Thank you to Pluto, who's got a few quick matches and he's working on a new game that I'm really excited about. Blargus, who made Blood Thief and he's got a new game coming out called Blackout Jack. You can check out his devlogs on his YouTube channel.
now. Thank you to Aramis, who made a game about feeding a black hole, and Hexagod, and the guy's launching again like 3 more games. Shout out to Alchemortis, made by Firebelly. This guy's one of the most prolific, is prolific the right word? Yeah, one of the most prolific game developers that I've ever met. Shout out to Jordan from O & Co, who just released Tethergeist, which has a 97% score on their Steam page. If you like games like Celeste, this is for you. Shout out to Far, who's making Impound Rumble. It's also a platform fighter, and he's making devlogs about it. Thank you to Mark, who made Surf's Up, which is a free game on Steam that's kind of like Counter-Strike surfing. Check out my friend Smitner's game, Hazard Pay, which is a really cool puzzle game. You can download the demo now and try it for yourself. Keep an eye out for the game Suck It Up by the guys at Metalworks. I met these guys at GDC. They're actually a bunch of college students out of Savannah, and they're all doing way more than I ever did at that age. And check out my friend Sam's game, You're in Love, which is coming out soon. He's a guy that also worked on the game Date Everything. That's all I'm gonna say for the shoutouts right now. I know I'm gonna be missing a few people. I do apologize. Just a big thank you again to all the game devs that I've been talking to and learning from through this journey. And let me just shout out the Cloudwall Podcast real quick, which has nothing to do with video games, but it's a new podcast with some of my favorite internet comedians, so check it out. And most importantly, just thanks to you guys for watching my videos. I'm trying to do what the horror movie guys are doing right now, going from YouTuber to making the back rooms, except I'm trying to make a Escape the Backrooms, or a game about, I'm trying to make a video game. Thank you to my Patreons for sticking around. You guys are gonna get a shout out at the end of the game credits, by the way. I'm recording this almost at midnight, mainly because I filmed earlier today and my freaking shot was out of focus the entire time I recorded this part. And I'm going on family vacation tomorrow at 5 in the morning. So I'm gonna go do that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's just joking around. All right. We do need to scoot this one. Good? It's a video. It's, yeah.